Thanks for staying with us. One of the things that we continue to hear and talk about is the need for us to diversify the Nigerian economy. And agriculture comes top on the list of other things that Nigeria can do. As a matter of fact, agriculture contributes a significant percentage to our GDP at the moment. How come we're not getting it right in certain respects? And there are many people who would say, look, why are we not exporting? The NAFDAC DG blew the whistle recently when she said that her institution, the NAFDAC, decries the incessant rejection of food and agricultural commodities from Nigeria by the United States and the European Union member countries over what she described as poor quality. Poor quality. Does that mean that we've been eating poor quality? Because I don't see how we'll eat good quality and export poor quality. But that's just one of so many things that one would want to talk about this morning along some other lines. Because if we can improve, the many economists tell us that if we can rev up production and rev up exports, then we're on our way to strengthening the Naira. How is that going to happen? Let's have a conversation around that this morning. We have two guests, joining us virtually. Mufutao Abolaniwa joins us from Akure. He is president, Cocoa Exporters Association, and national president, Cocoa Association of Nigeria, along with Adetokunbo Adewoyin, who is principal consultant, Fortress 20 Commodities. He's a certified international trade finance professional. Oh, she, beg your pardon, is a certified international trade finance professional at the London Institute of Banking and Finance, UK. She joins us from Lagos. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this morning. They say ladies first. So I'll go with you, Mr. Adewande. First of all, how did that information come to you that our product, our exports, agricultural exports, are being rejected internationally? How does that come to you, Ms. Adewoye? We can barely hear you. Could you kindly unmute your mic so we can hear you better?
Can you hear me now?
It's better now. Go ahead.
Okay, so I said when that information came to me a couple of days ago, I put stuff on my status and I said this disturbs me because it's not on rocket science.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Here you go ahead.
Okay. Over the past couple of years, Nigeria has struggled with meeting quality parameters in the international market. And year on year, what we do is just complain about it. There is a need to take decisive action, not just complain about it. And decisive action even starts from knowing what does the international market want. So if we know what the international market wants, then we begin to work towards compliance.
What does that mean? Are you suggesting that maybe we haven't done due diligence in the first place? We just want to export for the sake of it?
For most people who want to export is just another stream of income. In fact, exports is something to earn in foreign exchange. So you discover that if you look at that publication by NAFDAC, they said a couple of those people who had exported smuggled out those goods. So they didn't even have the health certificate. So they don't even know what the international market requires. So most of those commodities are not tailored to what the international market requires. The international market is big on safety, and we should also be big on safety. But they are very big on safety. And so when tests are conducted and the goods are not safe for human consumption, they are rejected. It's not anything personal. It's just that the goods are not safe for consumption. And where does this even start from? It starts from farming. So there's a need for us to be moving towards export farming, where the farming is not that it is just farming, but farming with an intent to meet safety standards and internationally acceptable standards.
What are those things? I mean, you just talked about the fact that it's the entire value chain. I mean that's what you're saying. That's the way it comes to me. But what are those other elements that we may not have been paying attention to, especially when it concerns export farming? Just to use the precise words that you used. If they are smuggled out of the country, I'll find that quite curious, because that in itself indicts so many agencies of government that ought to have done due diligence, or could have been collaborations with some people.
Okay, so when we look at export farming, for example, if I plant my granite and the aflatoxin level is high, that's like some kind of residue from the farming. No matter the process I put that granite through, from the farm it has failed because the residue of aflatoxin in it is high. And there is a minimum required residue that is acceptable in the international community. So when you want to export your commodities, for example, there are quality parameters that they give to you, and there are tolerance levels. So at the farming level, if my aflatoxin is already high, then that granite has already failed that test. Does the farmer know that my aflatoxin level is supposed to be at a particular tolerance level? So it starts from there. Farmer education, good agricultural practices, good harvest handling practices. Then before you now move to good manufacturing practices. So at that level, at the farming level, there are a lot of pesticides that are also used in farming that are poisonous for consumption. So when those pesticides are used in the process of farming, then you discover that by the time those things are harvested and you test for those pesticides, which are usually tested for anyway, you find out that the pesticide levels are quite high.
Well, let me bring in Mr. Bolaniwa on this. Well, he's into cocoa production and exporting. So, Mr. Bolaniwa, cocoa was one of those things that gave us a name in this country in the 60s and even early 70s. So how are we doing in that regard? But first of all, speak to the substantive issue at hand of our exports being rejected in the EU and the US.
Well, good morning, everybody. It is true that we are having serious issues at hand as regard the quality of our goods into the European Union and US, because the fact is still very clear that Nigerians people were not being honest with our products. And since the time of liberalization of cocoa to private individuals, the government officials are not doing what they used to do during the marketing board. All what they are interested is to take money from the produce merchant. And once right thing is not done, everybody, the merchants are looking for money. They are packing some of rubbish inside this product, getting to the final destination. And in their own country, they have rules. They have the specification of quality they are expecting from you. And once you don't follow it, they will reject your product. Even as we speak now, some of these nations, US and America and Europe, are contemplating seriously in banning Nigerian cocoa because of our sharp practices of our farmers and the license buying agents. Nigerian cocoa is the best. It has the best aroma in the world in terms of quality. But when you start adding your own other factors into it because you want to make more money, cocoa price for God's sake, as at today, is now around 50,000 naira per ton. Are we now saying you are not getting the better price of your product? The answer is no. You are getting it best. Why do you still? That's because of the same lackadaisical and the way Nigerians behave that I can always make more money. than what I'm putting into it. Until we start going back
yeah,
to what we do.
Just one moment, Mr. Bolaniwa. You talked about the marketing board. Take us through the process that ought to be followed, that you are aware of, before any export, should happen.
In the days of marketing boards, you process after you plug your cocoa from the farm, you have to ferment it for good 3-4 days before you start spreading it on the feed for proper drying, and you remove all the cluster shaft and everything, because then even if a produce officer saw just a minute of animal feces around your cocoa, that cocoa will not be processed. Market board will not take it from your hand. They will not even grade your cocoa. But today, all the state governors are only interested in making money. Okay, you are going to pay 5,000, you are going to pay 10,000, you are going to pay this amount. But that's not the issue. Even if they have, people will pay to you because they know there's no amount of money that is collected from their hand. They only add to their profits. So until we go back to the way we have been doing it, proper fermentation has to take place. Proper right chemical has to be used in the farm. Once that was done and cocoa is well dried and no any foreign matters added into it, there's no reason why Ghana or Ivory Coast should have a better premium on their cocoa than Nigerian cocoa. But because all the value chains are not following the true protocol of checking these quality parameters, these are the problems we are facing all over in the eyes of international community.
Mr. Balaro, one other question anyone would want to ask you right now. We have someone who might be able to speak to some of the issues that you both have raised, but one of the issues a number of people might also ask you as a cocoa dealer is, why export cocoa if we can, maximize the value chain, the end product of cocoa in Nigeria? Has that even ever been in consideration?
Why, as I've said before, as at today, Nigeria used to be the number 2 or 3 in cocoa production. But today, where's our position? We're around 4 or 5. The Nigerian cocoa production in Nigeria as at today is around almost 270 to 300,000 tons per annum. While in Ghana, they are producing 500,000 to 1,000.
This is definitely something that we need to give a little more attention to. Let me take this to Abuja. Markwe has someone with her who might be able to answer or respond to some of the issues that have been raised. Markwe.
Indeed, Ayo, thank you very much. We have with us Mr. Richard Markham Barham, who is technical advisor to the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development on knowledge management and communication. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much, Markwe.
Well, certainly knowledge is needed in this particular area, and NAFDAC, this is not the first time they raised the alarm. I do remember very vividly a time when we were very excited about yams about to be exported to New York. We saw the yams, we looked pretty hefty, we were pretty excited about it. But what we heard was that the yams got to when they got to New York, they were all rotten. And so there were huge questions as to how do other countries get their yams there, because Nigerians and a lot of other Africans we know buy yams successfully in European and the countries and in the Americas. And these yams are not rotten before they get there. So what happened to ours? There was that incident. I also recall an incident whereby the European Union warned about the level of toxins, especially pesticides in our beans. And even at home, back at home, it was not news to Nigerians because a lot of people don't cook beans straight away. They first of all boil their beans before they eventually cook them. So if this is what is giving us issue, especially at a time when we're looking at diversifying, when we know that oil is no longer sustainable, What exactly are we doing about it, at least from the Ministry of Agriculture?
Okay, Mark, thanks a lot. You see, the truth is that as a country, we have clear challenges in the manner in which we handle our export commodities prior to even the point of its departure from our shores. Right from the farm gate, and one of our contributors made that point, there is a need to ensure that good agricultural practices are undertaken while you are even cultivating the produce. The reason being that mycotoxins, the particular one in our context being aflatoxin, have a way of basically latching onto your produce and then limiting or inhibiting, its value when you're exporting. Most of the countries to which you're exporting have basic requirements as to standards. There are concerns about mycotoxins and other, will I say, microorganisms, which cause salmonella and the rest of them, which cause really serious problems to health. So these economies, they know these things. They understand the risk involved. They understand also the implication on their healthcare, system. And so they basically create a wall, a defense mechanism at the point of entry, saying, look, this is our minimum required content for mycotoxins, for instance. Okay, the EU has 2 to 4 ppb, per billion. There is a requirement as to what level of mycotoxins should be contained. You can't eradicate it completely, but there is a minimum requirement for the EU. There is a minimum requirement for the US. The US is even a little higher, 20 ppb. So you turn around and see that in Nigeria, the handling, much of our production is done by smallholder farmers. So the handling of these commodities, from production through to the transportation to the level of storage, and then onto, maybe processing, primary processing before you want to talk about export. You have clear, would I say, substandard handling going or realities existing in those spaces. That's why our minister, Alhaji Sapo Nanuno, really, as far back as February, had constituted, the interministerial committee, to tackle the zero reject realities. It's quite embarrassing to Nigeria, without mincing words, that our produce now have been banned. Beans from the EU, smoked fish from the US, and then Mexico, in recent times, has also insisted that our hibiscus has, high mycotoxin content.
That's Zobo.
Zobo. And then, you come back to the fact that these rejected items in themselves are indicative of what is prevalent locally in the markets, and which Nigerians practically consume.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis. Thinking back now with what I know, I realize that even as an individual, I have been exposed profoundly to mycotoxins. And the implication on your health is profound. It limits your cognitive abilities. It creates challenges with your kidney, your liver. Edema is part of it. For children, the stunting you see, prevalent stunting realities we have, are traceable to them. So the microorganisms basically produce these toxins, and these toxins are then retained. Take tomato, for instance. You keep it overnight. The next minute you see the molds, isn't it? That's our reality. We're in the tropics. So we have an environment that is amenable to these microorganisms for their existence and proliferation. You see the tomato, you see the molds on it. Maybe you say you want to maybe wash it up a little bit and cook it. I used to think that if you fry the tomato and put it into stew, you could, basically kill these things. But it's not true. The toxin that they produce requires about 500, I'm not kidding, 500 degrees Fahrenheit heat for 30 minutes for it to be, basically the constitution to be changed such as it will not be debilitating to your health. But if you subject your food to that, it basically becomes char. So it is almost impossible for you to address, that reality or that situation just by cooking. So take your mind back to the mama put. Take your mind back to to mile 12 market where you have a sha basically being, cleared away by the restaurant and culinary service providers. Come back to groundnuts that children maybe have to eat as substitution for a clear entry for protein, and nutritional offtake. Look at the ones that are produced by women, boiled, groundnut, that maybe the child hawks it for 2-3 days and still, with the mold on it, they wash it up a bit and then still put it back into circulation. People buy it. You open it up and then you see the mold. Trust me, you consume that, you are in trouble.
The alarm which NAFDAC raised, as much as a lot of people thought, okay, well, it's a good thing that they're trying to bring this to the fore so that, because I think was more with regards to what the agencies at the ports, those who are responsible for even letting these goods out in the very first place, the regulatory agencies that should take, standards organizations, for instance, that should take a better care of what is leaving our shores, to other places, that they should be on the alert. However, as you rightly said, it also raises huge questions as to what the Nigerian populace is consuming and what we have been exposed to. So I do not know what precisely is the Ministry of Agriculture doing? Because some people will say, is this something that is committed out of ignorance? Is this something that is committed because of our peculiar situation, the fact that we do not have ways to preserve our products? Because we know that part of the reasons why food prices are quite high is because of the high wastage levels we see as a result of improper storage. So is it that we are in a catch-22 situation of some sort where, because of our climate and the fact that we do not have electricity on the farms to preserve a lot of the produce, we're left with no option, or farmers are left with no option in order for them to maximize profit, to use some of these harmful preservatives of some sort before this produce get to the farm, to the markets where they eventually bought. Is that what the problem is, or is just sheer ignorance?
No, Marco, the fact is that it is hydra-headed, this problem. You've just painted the picture. It is so large a reality. As at the last, I did tell my minister, we have a crisis. It is an emergency situation because food security is affected, health and well-being is affected, and then trade is affected. Okay? I mean, imagine that for 9 years, the computation of the losses occasioned on account of just mycotoxin, prevalence in our exports amounted to 617 billion naira. Do the math. It is 68.5 billion naira per year. And it is not just revenue earning losses to government. It is, and that's really the challenge, the concern of my minister, because it trickles all the way down. It is losses to stakeholders within the value chain. It is indicative of a fragmented, disjointed food system. All right? And so you have got to handle this comprehensively. And the NAFDAC DG did mention that there is need for synergy, cooperation amongst MDAs. That you cannot takeaway. When my minister was constituting the committee I just talked about, he emphasized that it had to be an interministerial committee, because just as a Greek, we can't even solve this. So it's a mammoth problem. It cuts across the entirety of the policy and regulatory ecosystem. And like you said, it is something that borders on sensitization more than anything else. Because if you understand just the basic good agronomic practices, if you understand the basic hygiene expectations in the course of your activities along the chain, if you give credence to the fact that you need to also be very observant about what you put into your mouth as a consumer, then largely the problem begins to whittle down in terms of its impact.
Let me confirm that this committee was formed in January this year? February. Okay, let me throw this now to Lagos. Ayo, I do not know if any of our respondents has felt the effect. I've seen the committee at work already. They would like to respond to that.
Something to chew on. A lot has been said, by Mr. Mbara. As a matter of fact, I'm wondering as well, the question that you asked him, how can we get around or get ahead of this interministerial, interdepartmental, interagency collaboration that is crucial? And then so many issues, but we'll take them on when we return from this break. Do stay with us.
You're always running around. Keeping up with you needs a comforting touch from Huggies with the right stretch for how much you move. Huggies pants comfortably fit baby's tummy. Their 360-degree comfort fit waistband makes them easy to open and pull off and on, so baby can keep on exploring and you keep doing great, Mom. Huggies, recommended by 9 out of 10 mothers for comfort.
Disruption, competition, innovation, and performance optimization are the future for organizations aiming for success. Is your organization and its leaders ready for this future? Our Strategic Leadership for Success in an Unknown Tomorrow program will equip leaders with the skills to thrive in this future. Join our University of Cambridge, University of Oxford, and London Business School educated faculties. Professor Paul Griffith of Ashbridge, Ambassador Charles Crawford, and Ambassador Dr. Rachel Aaron on this remarkable program. Leveraging Texam's tested and proven methodology, they'll develop you a distinct capability to consistently generate winning strategies and entrepreneurial culture to thrive. Date, 16th to 19th of August 2021. Venue, Hilton Garden Inn, Birmingham, UK. Cost, £3,300. Covers study materials, accommodations, feeding, group pictures, and certification. £300 discount for the early bird if payment is made before August 1st. For more information, visit www.texam.co.uk or email exec@texam.co.uk.
Thanks for staying with us. Let me take this to Ms. Adewoyi. Well, you've listened to the technical advisor to the Minister of Agriculture. First of all, what do you make of all of those issues? It's not that government is not aware of the issues, it's just that it is what it is. And you spoke to the fact that farmers are largely uninformed about some of the things that they need to do. How then do we get ahead of this? Because unless we do well with production, we cannot do well with strengthening the Naira.
Exactly. So he mentioned sensitization, and sensitization is very, very critical where we are at now, because the farmers are not even in the cities. The farmer is not seeing this information about NAFDAC or whatever it is that is going on in the international community. But the actions and the good agricultural practices that the farmers are engaging is affecting the whole trade. So he mentioned collaboration between the MDAs. It is something that has to be taken seriously, because now it's the Nigerian integrity that is being challenged, and the different ministries involved, the Ministry of Trade, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, the NAFDAC, the Ministry of Agriculture, everybody needs to come together and decide that, okay, this is what is happening and this is how we want to turn things around. The international community didn't just start flagging off all these things. These things have been flagged off over the years. A couple of months ago, there was this thing about our beans being banned till 2022. It had been banned before then. And then in 2022, there will be a review to see if the issues raised have been addressed. And then if they have not been addressed, it will still go back to the ban. So what is going on? The committees, who are they meeting with? When they meet, who is implementing what? Who is the information going beyond the committees into the communities that really need this information, into the farming communities? Are the good agricultural practices being pushed by radio, by media, by leaflets? Is it being pushed at a level where the people who need to do these things are doing them? Who's monitoring? Who is evaluating? Because at the end of the day, this is costing a lot of losses for Nigeria, and it's causing a lot of reputational damage. It's not good for the reputation of Nigeria for there to be rejections. It's not good for the businessman who has put money on his goods to find out at destination that the goods have been rejected. So there has to be some synergy of sorts, and then that synergy will be felt when there's sensitization. This is what we have discovered. This is what the problem is. This is how to solve the problem. These are the people who will solve the problem remotely. This is how you solve the problem. This kind of pesticides. Are there agricultural extension officers who are monitoring what kind of pesticides are used for what products? Do the quality inspection agencies know what is supposed to be the parameters at the end of the day when they are testing? So it's a lot of education, sensitization, and information dissemination, and a lot of collaboration within the agency.
Well, one of the issues that you have raised, is crucial, and everyone agrees on with that one. I'd want to ask Mr. Mbaram about that. Which agency should be the clearinghouse? The lead agency that should take charge of that collaboration. It's the same challenge we have at the ports, where various ministries, departments, and agencies operate, but there isn't a central clearinghouse and consequently responsible for so many issues that we're having at the ports. But that's a conversation for another time. Which agency of government should be the clearinghouse? We know that the NEPC has a role in this. The Standards Organization of Nigeria has a role. The Ministry of Agriculture has a role. You've talked about the fact that even from the farming level, there are issues that we need to address. So in terms of this interdepartmental, interministerial collaboration, which organ, which ministry should be playing the lead?
Yeah, thanks, Ayo. So, I mean, I naturally would tell you it is the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, because we have the National Quarantine Services, Agricultural Quarantine Services, and they are like the country's, will I say, gatekeepers to ensure that our sanitary and phytosanitary integrity is, basically preserved, and as well they are responsible for ensuring that we do not have these intrusions from microbials that create these problems. They also are responsible for ensuring that we have a mechanism for engaging with other agencies, departments and agencies of government. But this is not to say that the role and responsibility of, take NAFDAC, for instance, is not primal in this. This is not to say that, you know, the responsibility of that you know, resides with the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, for instance, is to be diminished. So the core of it is that, like I rightly I mentioned to you, the Agric Minister constituted the standing interministerial, you know, technical committee on zero reject, and that is made up of all the other relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of government subsumed into one. But Ayo, let me make this point also very clear. Regardless of, you know, the structure or framework that you put in place, without an understanding, and that's why sensitization is even important at the level of policy, you know, without an understanding of the fact that we must work cooperatedly or in unison and in synchrony, you know, in order to achieve the ultimate objective. If we are busy protecting turfs, if we are busy undermining, you know, the position of other agencies, then we will have problems.
Maybe that's the challenge. My apologies, Mr. Mbaram. Maybe that's the challenge, really, because if there is a vision, I mean, this is a policy from the ministry, a policy direction, so to speak, from the Ministry of Agriculture. Perhaps there is a need for there to be someone that casts a vision, which every ministry, department, agency, board, whatever it is, must key into, or they'll be replaced. If there are no consequences, there will be nothing to stop anyone. For instance, while speaking earlier, Mr. Abolariwa, who is president of the Cocoa Exporters Association of Nigeria, decried the fact that marketing boards have stopped doing what they usually do. They stopped doing what they used to do in the 60s and 70s, that while Nigeria was #1. Cocoa, as we speak, as at the last time I just checked, is #2 to sesame seeds in, you know, as part of our exports. So if the marketing boards are not doing what they are supposed to do, the ministries, departments, and agencies are not doing what they are supposed to do, NEPC is not, you know, doing the needful to check these things, it gives NAFDAC, as you very well mentioned, as its phytosanitary agency, a bad name, so to speak, and consequently Nigeria. So if there is no vision, there is no restraint. Is that something the Ministry of Agriculture is looking to?
I without a doubt. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. The Minister of Agriculture has taken the responsibility to lead this. In fact, you're not wanting in terms of motivation to get this fixed. The reality is staring us in the face. Our commodities are being rejected. Our markets or our market players are losing resources, like you rightly said, and the coffers of the government too is being deprived of non-oil revenue. So it's a crisis. You know, and the minister understands that and has taken the responsibility to lead this. As to a clear pathway to addressing our ultimate objective, I mean, that is being evolved, and remember that we have more or less a situation where you have moving targets happening here and there that you have to nib in the bud. What do I mean by that? Take, for instance, the fact that you have a reality of intense smuggling into the country of agricultural, of food products. Take also, for instance, the fact that you have an intense, you know, recourse to the borders, you know, by elements that are criminal elements to take out our produce to other countries for them to be exported. And that's what the NAFDAC DG was telling you. And the Nigerian Quarantine Service also had indicated this as far back as February this year. You know, Dr. Idibwe, the DG, had indicated that most of the produce that you're talking about being rejected at at the international level are smuggled out of the country for purposes of, escaping tax, tax or
Mr.
fiscal requirements and all of that.
Mr. Mbaram, just 1 second. While I understand what you're saying, and I am trying to really agree with you, but then it still goes back to the same hegemon called government. Because there is a customs service that is supposed to ensure that some of these things do not happen. How come they do not happen? Maybe I can't ask you. But let me ask Mr. Mufutau Abolariwa, who is the president of the Cocoa Exporters Association of Nigeria. Now, you have heard some of these challenges that we are talking about now. And consequently, from what you have also heard from the two guests talk about, they have talked about the fact that sometimes it is the farmers themselves that seem to get ahead of themselves, trying to make gains and everything. What is your association doing? What's your group doing to ensure that these things do not happen ultimately? Because it's not just about, profits, it's about health.
Thank you very much. It's not just a buck pass that we as farmers, what have we been doing? It's a question of who are the people involved in this processing. As of today, most of the farmers are overaged in the farm. They cannot change their way of attitude until we start encouraging the young school leavers, the younger element between the ages of 30 to 40 to be involved in practicing of farming. And you cannot just encourage by providing funds for these people, providing right chemical for them, to ensure that there is enough security for the people. But once all these things are not in place, how do you want to encourage people to work? So the whole problem now is that we have to go back to the drawing board and check all the parameters. Why are we in this stage? Because if they have been doing it in the past and we'll get it right, why are we finding ourselves at this level now? So we have to look at everything holistically and say, yes, the farmers too are doing sharp practices. They will do. Why? If you are able to produce a ton of cocoa in your farm, you are talking of almost ₦1 million in your purse. But today, the smallholder farm cannot even get 2-3 bags of cocoa in their farm because one, they are overage, they are not using the right chemicals, they are not even go to the farmer at the right time. And the so-called government agencies like the Federal Inspection of State Produce Officers, the people that are supposed to supervise their work, that are supposed to give them the right method of what to do, they did not do it. We on our part, when as of today, the Department of Agriculture provide for the first time, they make chemical available to the farmer at a subsidized rate, which we as an association we have paid for, and we ensure that this thing gets back to our farmers so that they will be able to use the right chemical. But what has spoiled has spoiled, and once there is a fault from the farm, once the error has been committed from the foundation, nothing is going to be corrected at the end of the product. So we have to start doing the right farming from the farm, getting the right people, getting the right implement, and getting the right support for these farmers. That's the only way we can improve our production. And if we improve our production, our foreign earnings will increase. But this is the only nation where people don't want to invest. They want to reap from where we do not put money there. Until we start increasing, until we start encouraging these farmers, encouraging young people to start to be doing farming. There's no way we can increase. As I was telling you the other time, what's the population of Ghana? They are producing 1 million tons of cocoa. What's the population of Ivory Coast? They are producing 2.4 million tons of cocoa. Nigeria, with over 200 million population, we are only having 300,000 tons of cocoa to produce. What? Why? It's simply because...
Big questions right there that he's raised, and he's also said, he's made allusions to the age of our farmers. We've seen a mail now from some of our viewers, we've seen mails from some of our viewers, but I would like to ask a question raised in this one. This is from Professor Sylvester Monye, and he says that any country that desires to export agricultural produce must first invest in quality assurance facilities capable of achieving international certification. So there are huge questions as to whether or not we've actually invested in that. Have we invested in any equipment? Well, that's his mail right there on the screen. It says that once this is done, the international buyer develops confidence in our processes and our products. It also talks about, it's not just about the final produce, but includes how it is produced. For example, has the producer met some of the basic conditions such as the exclusion of the use of child labor? Many more issues are involved which you're not paying attention to. But the very first one which he raised, which is the investment in quality assurance facilities, do we have that?
Okay, Mark, so again, we must be conversant with the realities that we face presently. Infrastructure is a major contributing factor in this situation. You need power to extend the shelf life, positively extend the shelf life of agricultural commodities. To process, you need energy. You also need good road infrastructure to be able to convey these produce from the farm gate to the holding points, at the level of storage. You also would need some form of consistent, provision of financing so that the stakeholders, the players in, say for instance, the logistics chain can deploy state-of-the-art, proper equipment in doing so. I'll give you an instance. You use a vehicle to convey maybe petrol, to from one point to the other. After you have, taken off the cargo, you return again to use the same vehicle without subjecting it to some form of cleaning. You use it again for tomato. You use it again for some other commodity. Most certainly, you would have some transfer of toxic content.
But isn't that because the farmers are left to their own devices? We've seen how in communities, a lot of farmers, they organize their transport by themselves, and oftentimes cost is their biggest consideration.
Mark, I agree with you completely, but the fact is that the government, I'm saying all of this in order for you to better situate the response of the government, which I'm going to be putting forward. You see, when you realize that infrastructure is a challenge, you now want to meet that deficit, and you want to do that targetedly. That's what we're doing with the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones program, which the Africa Development Bank, the International Fund for Agricultural Development, is partnering with the federal government, particularly the Ministry of Agriculture, to implement. Targetedly, we're providing infrastructure to brownfield agro-industrial entities, knowing that their activities would have a backward integration effect on productivity at the farm gate, productivity, in fact, on farm. We're looking at connecting them. The Anchor Borers program is already doing that, but we want to take it to scale.
The question is, what will happen in the meantime?
No, that's happening already.
Okay.
The Anchor Borers program is on. We have also, a level of contract farming activities that are being undertaken by several states, which we want to now mainstream into one single program. And remember, increasing the one way that you're going to increase the appetite of the younger generation in order to get involved in agricultural, the agricultural sector or agribusiness is for you to ensure that the activities around production, processing are largely, the redundancies are largely taken out of them. Mechanization becomes key. So you understand why at the level of the Ministry of Agriculture, our emphasis is on the green imperative. We need to mechanize.
Let me quickly flip this too, because you say that some of these interventions are already on. I don't
That's
know,
correct.
Have they manifested? I know that they've been, the funding is currently ongoing, and of course the attempt to build the infrastructure is currently ongoing as well, but it's not yet in operation, is it?
No, so what I'm saying is the Anchor Borers program has been implemented over a period now. We currently have big industrial entities connected to smallholder farmers or small players.
The Anchor Borers program have been targeted at specific food produce, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Rice is one of them.
That's
Cocoa,
correct.
which is our major food export and supposed to be one of the major forex earners for us, it's not one of the targets of the Anchor Borers program, is it?
You can't do everything at the same time.
I understand that, but some of the issues which we're currently facing now are with these major exports which we're taking out of the country. You heard the president of the Cocoa Association there talking about some of the challenges they're facing. He's talked about the fact that because the farmers are old, the chances that they'll be able to change their practices are very slim.
That's true.
And we need to encourage, young graduates into this, or younger people into this. So if you're talking about some of these interventions and you're not targeting produce as is already earning major forex for us to be able to maximize the potential, the question is, are we targeting rightly? That's the question.
So when you talk about cocoa, you want to remember that you have sesame. You want to remember that you have oil palm. You want to remember that you have ginger. So it is a considerable situation you have facing you at the level of policy. What we are doing is to pick these value chains in their order of, value rendition, and then also ensure that we have a crowd in, will I say, incentivization of the system. When I mentioned the SAPZ, the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones project, I say that because extension, as a policy of the ministry, which my minister is very, very keen on, interested in, and which he's pushing, extension, research, improvement in research, okay? When you increase research output, you need to be able to connect that to practice. So the extension agent becomes key. We are bullish on the extension, improving the Nigerian extension capacity. Also, we're looking at mechanization, like I said, and we'll then come back.
So when are we due for a review? Because all of these things are currently ongoing.
Yes.
When would you say, call me back in a certain time, and I believe that we should be able to report some progress?
Okay, so halfway down next year, call me back and you would
halfway down next year is a long way away.
No, it isn't.
But
it isn't, because
we will certainly remember. We'll keep that in mind.
No, keep it in mind.
Before that time, hopefully we'll call you again, because people have to eat every day, and they're looking to buy buy food on a daily basis. And I'm sure people who have listened to you this morning will be more alarmed as to, oh my God, if this is what they're saying abroad, what am I consuming in-house? So hopefully we should be able to get NAFDAC to come and answer some of the questions as to what they're doing and how they're collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture with regards to that. But we have to thank you so much. We're totally out of time. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Richard Malcolm Barham is a technical advisor to the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development on knowledge management and communication. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. We've also had joining us via Zoom from Akure, Mr. Adetokunbo Adewoyin, who's a beg your pardon, Mr. Mufutao Abolarinwa, who is the president of the Cocoa Exporters Association and National President, Cocoa Association of Nigeria, joined us via Zoom from Akure. And also from Lagos, we had Madam Adetokunbo Adewoyin, who is a principal consultant, Fortress 20 Commodities, and also a certified international trade finance professional at the London Institute of Banking and Finance. Thank you all so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you.